Welcome to Small Plates. My name is Scott Waldman. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and I am Lido Beach. I'm extremely happy and flattered to be this month's featured recording artist to kick off some Get Real career advice from our host, Wayne Martin. The song Wayne chose is called You Fell Hard, and I'm extremely happy to share this with you. I'm Scott Waldman. You're listening to the Small Plates podcast, and this is You Fell Hard. Shalom.
You fell hard, just like they wanted, 'cause you're young, and you had no chance of knowing better. You fell hard, I will put you back together. So far, you're not getting any better. You've been racking up scars, living life in the dark. No, you just don't get it. No, you just don't get it. Some days you will be someone you need. Soon she'll get you off guard, make you think twice. Then you fall hard into love and life close. Get you so far, wherever you are, she'll be there too, and you'll be loving life. It's too bad, you're just gonna have to wait. So sad, it could happen any day. When it finally comes, you'll be punch drunk in love, like whoa, oh, whoa, oh. I could tell you everything you wouldn't believe. You couldn't plan it better in your wildest dreams. You've been wishing on stars, living life in the dark. No, you just don't get it. No, you just don't get it. Some days you will be someone you need. Soon she'll catch you off guard, make you think twice. Then you fall hard into love and life close. Get you so far, wherever you are, she'll be there too, and you'll be loving life. Loving life. When you fall hard, she'll be there to save your life. Oh, when you fall hard, she'll be there to save your life. Every single day you'll know. If you fall hard, she'll be there to save your life. Oh, when you fall hard, she'll be there to save your life. Oh, soon she'll catch you off guard, make you think twice. Then you'll fall hard into love and life close. Yet you're so far, wherever you are, she'll be there too, and you'll be loving life. Soon she'll catch you off guard, make you think twice. Then you'll fall hard into love and life close. Yet you're so far, wherever you are, she'll be there too, and you'll be loving life.
You're listening to Small Plates, bite-sized career strategies for musicians and other creators. I'm Wayne Martin, and this is podcast number 103. Scott Waldman and Lido Beach kicked off our time together today with You Fell Hard. Thank you, Scott. That track is so in the pocket. The music on Small Plates is just to warm us up, get us engaged. A good bop, get us focused on some provocative ideas that require some listening with intent. And I really love giving artists some extra visibility. And so in case you're wondering, I'm not using this podcast to promote my clients. My clients will never show up here. In fact, like more and more other managers these days, I don't even publish my roster. So the primary qualifier to be featured music on Small Plates is to be highly marketable. I'll go on to say, philosophically, I don't think as a music manager and a career strategist, it's my job to tell anyone what good music is, including my clients. Great music, it's a subjective phrase and thought. It's my job as a manager and consultant to evaluate the marketability and the commercial potential of an artist, or of a song, or of a recording. Not whether or not I like something. if I think it's really fantastic personally. And then I have to forge a path for it. Can the artist, the song, the recording reach and inspire people? How do we make that happen? That's the first of many questions I ask of every demo and every management submission that crosses my desk. I understand the basics of music theory, but I never wanted to be the musician on stage. I am my most creative when I'm surrounded by creative people. So after 10 years inside the big major music labels, after 10 years inside independent labels, after years inside music publishing and intellectual property and licensing, I was finally experienced enough to meet my own criteria to build my own dream career as a manager and a strategic consultant for creative people. I know who I am and what my job is, which is a great way to segue into today's topic of your identity as a musician or other creator. Do you already know who you are creatively? Or are you just now exploring that? Is that a quick answer for you, or do you want to think on it? Do you own what your innate sense of creative expression is? Or is it a case of mistaken identity? I'm sorry for that long-winded transition, but we made it. Today's podcast is called Mistaken Identity. Mistaken identities are all too common and unfortunate in today's music market. And I think that's for two primary reasons. First, sometimes creators don't know enough about their own muses, their influences, their processes, to know who they are as an artist, or to provide a point of reference that translates well. So they often miscommunicate the nature of their work, and that in itself is debilitating to their own career growth. Or perhaps as a writer, performer, recording artist, they absolutely understand who they are, how they use their creative voice, and what they bring to the table, but they also have no idea how to express it to anyone else in an effective way. Their relevance gets lost in translation. Either way, we are describing a case of what I call mistaken identity. I wrote a blog post on our website a year or so ago, and here's an abbreviated version of that post. I basically stated that anyone who describes themselves as a songwriter would be best served to first check to ensure that they actually write songs. The fastest way for an industry professional to determine if you are the songwriter you say you are is to simply ask how many songs you've written. Don't mislead the professionals. Would you expect someone you met backstage to identify as a chef in conversation and then reveal that they had, in their life's experience, only cooked 6 meals? Or a dog trainer to say that she had only trained 1 dog, and that one was her own? That's basically what I wrote. And that will never win an award for a brilliant or groundbreaking original thought. But I think I can help you today if I were to reference and share the mistaken identity experience that inspired it. Not so long ago, I was having regular meetings with an iconic name brand artist. And we were talking about working together as artist and manager. This artist stated that having been known until then as a singer, it was now personally important to be known as a career songwriter. That songwriter had been really removed from the marketing and financial equations by previous coaches that there was a breadth and a depth of identity attached to being a songwriter that the music industry had just swept under the carpet, and that should change going forward. I connected to that desire as rational. So I asked, if you were to tell me how many songs you have written in your life, and then tell me how many of those songs you would want to record and release right now, what would that number be? And after a few seconds of thought, this musician said, I think about 9, maybe 10, but probably 9. And I quickly responded, oh, okay, so there are 9 songs you feel are totally completed. Fantastic. How many have you written in total? How many songs are unfinished besides those 9? And the response to my enthusiasm was, no, what I meant was, I've written 9 so far in total. And I just sat there for a moment, trying to process this case of mistaken identity. This musician identified as a musician and a songwriter, but didn't spend much time writing songs. The problem I was being asked to solve was about 9 songs. Some pro songwriters I know write that in a month, not in a lifetime. Here's a quick sidebar. There's no specific number of songs you have to have written in order to be considered a songwriter by the music business at large. But one industry standard I impose with the musicians I work with is that I never negotiate a music publishing contract for a songwriter with less than 30 finished songs to present. And short of that, I never even introduce any of my clients to music publishers just to get on their radar until they give me what I call their 10 and 3. 10 finished songs they will record, or they will let another artist cut as is. And then 3 finished songs they will hold for themselves as artists. Finished is a relative term, too. It means different things to different people. So if that musician experience in particular that I'm referencing, if that artist didn't understand who they are, given their unique high-level experiences and relationships and resources, do you get a free pass if you're a developing artist, as someone on the come-up, to not know fundamentally who you are? No. No free pass on this. Because if this is not a hobby, you need to know yourself well enough that you can own what you're bringing to the table as a creator while you're looking for fans and for business partners, and then you should speak only that. Telling an A&R representative that you can write songs like that guy in the top 10 does all day long doesn't mean anything. I mean, it really doesn't mean anything to say that. It's empty. You have to prove that idea to prove your identity. So if you have the good fortune, or in some cases, misfortune, to have a chat with an A&R rep, then say, I can get you 3 of those songs just like his in the next few weeks. That statement has weight. That's saying something. And there's a real action and accountability attached to it, not just an offhanded comment of, oh, yeah, I can do that. Now you have a couple of real-life examples of mistaken identity today. One common thread you may begin to see is that when asked who they are, a creative may respond by saying who they think they are, or who they want to be, not who they are. Take a second to see if that applies to you. Have you ever overhyped or lied to a club owner? Or at a party? Or in an interview with a blogger or a YouTuber? Have you ever stretched the truth of your artistic identity to hopefully get an advantage of some kind? If you have, did that compromise or misrepresentation serve you in a positive way? Because I'm pretty sure it didn't. One of the most painful and sometimes humorous conversations I have on the regular is with musicians who try to respond to a very direct question. What kind of music do you make? I create radio country music. Or I create instrumental healing music for music therapy. I make beats. I score themes for indie films. I'm a jazz singer. I'm a DJ. All of these answers tell me exactly what I want and need to know to take that conversation a little bit further. But more often than not, what I hear is something much more like this. We're a band that's as good or better than Led Zeppelin. We're an iconic rock band in that way, but we're not ripping anyone off. You know, like Greta Van is entirely Led Zeppelin. We also don't fit into any category. We're sure that we are unlike any rock band you've ever heard. We're hard to describe. You have to hear us to understand. Okay, well, that answer has only told me one thing, and that one thing is you don't know who the you are. So hold up. Even if that's what that band member thinks, which is a huge red flag in itself, that's not what they should say. And I'm dead serious. What they should say is, we're a rock band. A 5-piece. That reply would give everyone that they're talking to the context to ask more questions. If you can't identify who you are, what you do, what you create, and how it relates to other creators like you, then it's time for some soul searching. Perhaps an identity conversation with your bandmates, and then you have to get your elevator speech together. Do you know what an elevator speech is? Well, it's a very tired term. So call it whatever you want, my identifier or my short bio. Whatever you want to reference it as is okay. Elevator speeches are not just for creatives. They're a tool used by every kind of professional, and the quickest way to describe one is to say it's a bit of a written and rehearsed pat response to anyone asking about you. But it has to be short enough and concise enough that you could share it with a stranger on a random elevator ride, and they would exit at their floor, walking away with an accurate snapshot of you. In terms of length, 3, maybe 4 sentences is good for me. I ask all of my clients to create and edit and update their elevator speech on their own. So here's my elevator speech when someone says, "Tell me what you do." I'm Wayne. I'm a music manager and a career strategist. If you know what a sports agent does for pro athletes behind the scenes, that's pretty much the kind of work I do, except I do it with performers, mainly musicians. I have my own boutique company. The first fact I share is an identifier or a self-descriptor. I'm Wayne, I'm a music manager and a career strategist. The second fact builds on that. I share a comparison and context. So I say, if you know what a sports agent does, that's pretty much what I do, except I do it for musicians. And then the third fact gives the audience, the person I'm talking to, some kind of scale or scope to the identifier. Number one, circling back to identifying myself as a music manager and a career strategist. So I circle back and say, I have my own boutique company. That gives scale and scope. You learned a lot about me in just a matter of seconds. And notice what I didn't do, that I did do earlier with you today. I didn't get into, well, I spent 10 years working for the major labels, and then I spent 10 years at independent labels, and then I went into intellectual property and music licensing and on and on. I might share those specifics after a follow-up question. If they say, oh, wow, how did you become qualified to do something like that for a living? Now, that was a different elevator speech response for me than the question, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a husband of 25 years and a father to 2 teenage girls. I grew up a Southerner, but I've lived in the Northeast for most of my adult life. I pretty much listen to music 24/7. The elevator speeches are different because the questions are different. And who is asking them may be different. So make sure there's no mistaken identity around me and around my work. I know how to share my identity with others no matter what the setting is. As an artist, your challenge is to do the same. And it is easier said than done. Can you write an elevator speech as a creator that you can use at a party or in a meeting or in an email? If you can do that, and I think everyone can, is it honest? Make sure that you're not a career songwriter who's only written 9 songs, like my example. Make sure you're not a rock band who can't really be described, like my other example. The thesis statement for today is this: to avoid mistaken identity is that if you don't know who you are, then you entirely missed an opportunity by speaking misleading information to someone who you want to engage, either as a business partner or as a fan or as a co-creator. Play that again if you have to. Please rewind 10 seconds or so to make sure you got that. If you don't know how to begin to succinctly describe who you are or what you do, ask people who know you and your work for help. And for those of you who are in the process of defining yourself as an artist, you can express that truth. If an actor were to introduce herself to me by saying, I've been doing some stand-up over the summer, but I'm focused on a serious, dramatic project for the fall, that's completely valid and honest and well expressed. She didn't communicate that she doesn't know who she is. She shared that she's on an artistic journey. An artistic journey of exploration and experimentation is not mistaken identity. Elevator speeches or identity statements have to become natural to be effective. Otherwise, you seem like you are reciting lines, which you are, sort of. But you'll get the hang of it if you practice and if you allow yourself permission to edit and ad-lib a bit as you become more comfortable. One of my own elevator speeches from just now, from today, would never come out of my mouth exactly as it did. I work off of a mental blueprint. You can too. Practice in a mirror, with a friend, a bandmate. Make it relaxed and not robotic. So, do we have any strategies today? Yes, we do. There are 3. And we've already finished discussing 2 of them. Let's backtrack 1 second. Mistaken identity strategy number 1 today was to know your creative self well enough to be able to not mistake your own identity. Mistaken identity strategy number 2 today was to express that you know yourself in a concise and in an authentic way. And then when you have accomplished that, you can start to work on today's 3rd strategy, and that is this. Avoid a case of mistaken identity for your future self. Hypothetically, if I sit down with a talented female vocalist and I ask, so where do you want all of this work to lead to? And she says, I want to be the new Lady Gaga. I'm just going to faceplant on my desk. That's a big sigh of disappointment for me. Because that's not going to happen. And now I have to decide if I want to convince her of that and that she has a mistaken identity, or if I just want to end the meeting. There's only one Lady Gaga, and she's already it. Every award, every chart, every photo, video, every medium, Academy Awards to wardrobes of red meat. I mean, come on, the chances of you becoming the next Lady Gaga are about as likely as you hitting the Mega Millions lottery. It's an improbability. Don't tell anyone you want to work with that your goal is an improbability. A better approach might be, Wayne, I am working to have a career as a recording artist, and if that provides me with opportunity to do some acting, I'd like to pursue that. I'm inspired by artists like Lady Gaga. I like how she took one skill and one profession, a songwriter or recording artist on a major label, and then she turned that into so many other opportunities to express her creativity. Wow, that's a very different expression to share. It is less naive. It's less delusional. Today's 3 mistaken identity strategies are moving targets, though. Your expression of identity is a constantly changing conversation. For most artists, those changes are just a nuance or in a small detail. But they are important enough to identify and communicate honestly. As you create and evolve and reflect on your work, you have to tweak how you share that with others. That means you have to revisit your identity often. Make sure it's honest, that it's true to you, that you're not fooling yourself, that you're something you're not, that you are working toward what you want your identity to truly be, that you communicate that honestly in your work, your speech, your photos, your posts. And we will talk about all those things in an upcoming podcast. We will talk about branding and imaging. It's so important to share also that I'm not suggesting that an authentic identity is an easy grab for anyone. For you, for me, for any of us, because we like to think certain ways about ourselves and our futures. And we usually express that inside of our own comfort zone. Before we leave each other, I want to tell you about a vocal coach, a songwriter, and the founder of the Artists Circle. Her name is Wendy Parr, P-A-R-R, and if you like how I tackle the challenges that creatives face, making their living on small plates, you will definitely like Wendy's groove on social media. Follow her on YouTube. I do. Her videos are super quick. They pack a punch, and you should enjoy it immensely. Wendy Parr. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe. We take ideas for podcast topics by email, and you can tell us what you'd like to hear about. That's at smallplatessuggestionbox@gmail.com.
You've been listening to Small Plates, bite-sized career strategies for musicians, other creators, and their collaborators, hosted by music manager and veteran career strategist, Wayne Martin. Small Plates is a monthly subscription podcast produced by M3 New York City. Click subscribe to receive new Small Plates insights and strategies on the first Friday of each month, right here on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening.